Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 182, Understanding the Word of Prophecy, Part 2. The podcast objectives are analyze the importance of following your spiritual convictions, analyze the sequential nature of complex prophecies, analyze the prophetic wheel, and analyze the fine line between true and false prophets. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. Follow your spiritual convictions. Now, in the most recent podcast, we revealed 4 of the 7 primary guidelines for understanding the prophetic word. To wit, every prophetic event has a purpose, why it will happen, a time, when it will happen, a season, a sign confirming it is about to happen, and a messenger, one who has been spiritually licensed to prophesy the event. In this podcast, we will analyze one of the final 3 guidelines for understanding the prophetic word for 2 critical reasons. I will share both as inflection points, and I ask you to remember them as we progress this end time series. Firstly, and as I have said before, the next level of courses in this end time series will focus on executing a deep dive into the 7 seasons in these last days. This deep dive will be highlighted by a thorough examination of the scriptures I used to formulate the timeline which accounts for these 7 seasons. Therefore, if you do not grasp the primary guidelines for understanding the prophetic word, you will struggle to see the spiritual evolution of these 7 seasons, and you will not be prepared for them. This brings me to my second point. That is, you do not have to be a prophet to understand the prophetic word. All you need is a spirit of Elohim and a love for truth. If you possess these 2 invaluable gifts, the Father will convict you by his Spirit of every matter, whether it be the truth or whether it be a lie. This is precisely why I have consciously and consistently encouraged this audience to follow their spiritual convictions. This is especially the case when you are dealing with the word of truth. Remember, there are countless errors, misinterpretations, and false doctrines being circulated in the religious world. And yet, there is only one truth. There is one path that leads to everlasting life, and few will find it. And although finding the truth is like finding a needle in a haystack, we are more than able to find it. All we need is a map. All we need are the guidelines. We have already analyzed 4. Now we must analyze the final 3. Complex prophecies. Now, the fifth of the 7 primary guidelines for understanding prophecy is sequence. That is, the scriptural and spiritual order of each event recorded within the prophetic word and its relationship to the Father's will. Clearly, this is one of the most critical and complex guidelines we have discussed thus far. And although it shouldn't be too hard to gather, allow me to tell you why. Not every prophecy is linear. That is to say, not every prophecy is sequential as it pertains to time. As a matter of fact, most complex prophecies are not linear at all. Rather, they are intermittent. They are periodic, shifting from one frame of time to another, and often back again. Despite this truth, the vast majority of so-called believers interprets prophecy in a linear fashion. Here lies the problem. Vis-a-vis, all who interpret non-linear prophecies as linear are, in effect, misinterpreting the times and seasons of these prophecies, and they will be subjected to 2 disastrous fates. A, they will miss the Father's appointed times and be left behind. Or B, they will look for an event that has already occurred, or they will look for an event that will not occur in this season. Therefore, as we prepare to embark on multiple detailed analyses of the prophetic word, you must remember this. Complex prophecies do not follow the pattern of a straight line. On the contrary, complex prophecies reference events that are hundreds, even thousands of years apart. And if you're wondering why, allow me to tell you, for it speaks to how every true prophet sees and interprets time. Although not every prophecy is linear, time follows the linear pattern of a circle, an uninterrupted, continuous flow of events that all lead to one destination, that is eternity. This reality emits the spiritual model of the prophetic will, that is a circular representation of time as it was instituted at the beginning of creation and as it will be concluded at the end of the world. The prophetic wheel. Now, the timeline below is a linear model of time, beginning with the first creative week and concluding with the end of the world, i.e., the end of time. The timeline to the right is the same linear model of time, beginning with the first creative week and concluding with the end of time. The only difference is this model is a circle, for a circle best depicts the flow of time, which, for all intents and purposes, ends where it begins. This is precisely why I have been led to refer to this model of time as the prophetic wheel. Not to be confused with the purported wheel of time or some other secular model, the prophetic wheel has no ties to mysticism or astrology. As I said before, it is merely a circular representation of all the events that have occurred since the beginning of time until now, and all the events that will occur from now until the end of the world. If you read anything more into it, you are doing so outside of the set apart spirit and at your own risk. Now, by definition, the prophetic wheel is the timeless accounting of every event which occurs within the boundaries of time that can only be accessed from the unique and singular perspectives of the divine, and by an individual who has been granted this access, for example, a prophet. Now, here we have a treasure box. The prophetic will is the source of all prophecy. In effect, the word of prophecy is a collection of the various viewpoints the prophets were granted in their observance of the prophetic will. This shouldn't be too hard to understand, especially when you consider how every event that will ever happen has already happened. That is, from the divine perspective of Elohim, for he knows the beginning from the end, and nothing is hid from him. Likewise, it is neither his desire nor his intention to hide many matters from us. This is why he raises up prophets, messengers, and other spiritual offices. It is for this reason. The Father knows where we are headed in our lives, always. And when his people are nearing crises and other difficult times, he has always warned them. The primary way he warns us is by his prophets. To wit, he allows his men and his women to see the future by granting them delimited access to the prophetic will and delegating a spiritual commission to warn his people. This speaks to the vast importance of the prophetic will, which I am showing again to the right. Without controversy, this time model is the source of every word of prophecy. That includes those which are not recorded in the scriptures. Accordingly, the prophecies that I will analyze in the upcoming podcast will not only be confirmed by my spiritual understanding of the prophetic word, they will also be confirmed by my experiences vis-a-vis the visions I have had in which I was granted spiritual access to view the prophetic will. The prophets you are disposed to follow. Now, I trust you are seeing the infinite value of the prophetic will as it pertains to our understanding of these last days. Trust me, you don't have to be a prophet to see how the following inflection point is true. The Father uses the prophetic will in various ways, and one of these ways is to confirm our understanding of the prophetic word. On this wise, the Father has regularly allowed me to have dreams and visions of these last days with the specific intent of confirming my interpretation of certain prophecies. For without this confirmation, my interpretation is not only worthless, it is dangerous. You must believe me, the burden upon every prophet is great. And if you think the reward is high on this or any other spiritual office, let me tell you, the risk is even higher. Here is why. There is a very fine line between a true prophet and a false prophet. For all it takes is one error, one lie, one miscalculation, and you will find yourself descending into the model of a false prophet, all of whom are under the pain of present and eternal death. Now, you may be asking, is it really that serious? Will Elohim surely kill a man or a woman for being wrong concerning prophecy or some other facet of his word? Is scriptural accuracy really that important to him? Now, the simple answer is yes, and the scriptures bear witness. Many prophets lost their lives for deviating from the Father's will, and not just prophets. Believe me, the burden of death is upon everyone whom the Father has called. It is upon us all. Search the scriptures, and you will find it is true. Whether in the Old or New Testament, Elohim has punished and ultimately killed those who did not walk in his truth. Specifically, he has killed those who led his people astray by feeding them errors and lies. This is precisely why the fourth guideline for understanding the word of prophecy is the messenger. That is, a true prophet, a man or woman who will tell you the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, not adding nor subtracting from the word he or she was given. Here lies the inflection and a key point in this critical matter. I advise you to consider it faithfully as you are determining the prophets you are disposed to follow as you seek salvation in these last and evil days. Prophets are not all knowing. We don't have every detail of every end times event. We don't know the truth of every spiritual matter. For that reason, we are not ashamed to admit when we don't have the answer to a particular question, and we are not going to make things up. Remember, every prophet has a delegation, a commission, a specific assignment, and he or she is given everything they need to fulfill their office. Our primary focus is fulfilling our delegation, not convincing men and women to believe a truth they will not receive. For if these should not believe, Elohim remains true, and these are all liars. These are all deceived. Now, here is the final word. The truest confirmation of any messenger is, quite simply, their message. From the beginning, my message has been consistent, and I have, thus far, built a very powerful case, laying a firm foundation for understanding the truth concerning these last days and the 7 seasons we must endure to be saved. My ask is that you stay with me as the Spirit leads you, because very soon I will begin painting a most vivid picture of these last days, using the word of prophecy and revealing what is true. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today and ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. Remember, where there is no conviction, there can be no faith. And without faith, it is impossible to please him. Next, if the Spirit is leading you and you have not signed up for our mailing list, you can go to www.transformationbytruth.com to sign up today. We'll alert you as soon as podcasts are posted, and we'll share our presentations, notes, and other materials at no cost. It is for your edification. And most importantly, you will be connected to me and those who have joined themselves to this ministry as we prophesy and align current events with the prophetic word. These discussions are taking place outside of this podcast ministry. Therefore, if the Spirit is leading you, and only if the Spirit is leading you, I encourage you to come and see. You will be in good spiritual company. Lastly, If you have any questions, please submit them via our contact form on our website. If you have any comments, please share those on the video page for this podcast, also on our website. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 182, Understanding the Word of Prophecy, Part 2. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 184, Understanding the Word of Prophecy, Part 3. I will post this podcast on Monday, June 12th, 2023. Until then, my friends, continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch, continue to pray, continue in fasting, and most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.